So now we are talking about the conservation effort, like the technical thing behind your conservation. But at the same time, what you are doing here is to conserve the Siamese crocodile, sir. So what happened to them and why do they need conservation at this point, sir?
Okay, so the Siamese crocodile, some years ago, we thought was already extinct. We thought it had already gone through over harvesting, overfishing, being captured for crocodile farming, and destruction of habitat. But in 2000, they were rediscovered in Cambodia, in the Cardamom Mountains. So there was a relic population still there. So because this population then is very small, although not extinct, they were upgraded to critically endangered. So we think there was around 150 animals, maybe around that time. So we know when animal numbers are this low, this is very important. We have another chance to save it before it does go extinct completely. So since 2000, there's been a lot of organisations doing a lot of work in the Cardamom Mountains around Siamese crocodile conservation. And now, all these years on, this is expanding and more people are getting involved. And of course, we got involved in a project also. So our project is part of rewilding in the Fulmer range, in a protected area. So not in the Cardamom Mountains, we don't work there.
Yes,
but we have released these guys now into Siam Wildlife Sanctuary in Stung Treng. Their range used to be very big, and now it's just been cut right down to just a few small populations now. So we're helping create a new population.
Yes, sir. But you mentioned just now, which is a number, 150 remaining population or something. So, I mean, it is, of course, not a big population, but what else do you, let's say, formulate from the numbers? But, we also need to care about their production rate, their, habit in eating, or maybe the intervention from people. So the number alone shows everything, or you need to consider many other
things.
Factors?
Yeah, so that number is a rough number from when it was rediscovered. There's a lot more crocodiles now, thankfully, because of the good work other NGOs have been doing. And there's more populations now, so it's not just in that population in the Cardamom Mountains. There are Siamese crocodiles in populations in Laos now as well, in Vietnam. So there's been a lot of work. So there's a lot more wild crocodiles than there was before, but due to those conservation efforts, yeah.
Yes, sir. So normally, when you decide to conserve an animal, the main factor is the number. There should be
the main factor, yes. Yeah. So a lot of animals are ranked in a
classification
on how rare they are, and this is done through scientific methods. And then we have least concern animals. There are many we don't worry too much about, and we go all the way down to critically endangered, extinct in the wild. And what we've been talking about today, so the Siamese crocodiles, the royal turtle, the elongated, they're all classified as critically endangered. So that means that the next step is extinction.
So, in terms of criteria, how do you label them as critically endangered? I mean, do you measure their number based on the land area or something like that?
We don't. So many different factors go into it. Like I say, it's a scientific process that's done, is evaluated through many different people. But it's all done under what we call the IUCN. IUCN classify global wildlife, and it's their assessments that tell us where they fit. Yeah.
So you only get, the final term that they offer.
We use IUCN. IUCN is the international recognized conservation body, and they primarily have teams of scientists work all over the world for different species, and then with their assessments, we can assess if a population is in increase and decrease, and what the threats are, and all of these things together, then they get ranked into the system. Yeah.
So normally your job is to bring their population up. That is the main job.
Yeah, pretty much. To conserve something, if we have big numbers of it, especially back in the wild, that's the important thing. We want them. It's one thing having these animals in captivity, but really we want them living in the wild. And that's the more difficult part, because land management is more difficult. You know, we have a lot of people and animals conflict often, or people hunt them, and
Yes, sir.
So this is more difficult. Yeah.
Yes, sir. But during the conservation phase, because okay, for example, where we are standing right now is obviously conservation, and you keep them healthy, you study them. So during the conservation process, for example, they are here. What do you look at them, sir? Like, what do you study them so you can get the most from your work, sir?
So the conservation part of this project for us is we're only a very small part of this project, right? So the animals you see here, of course, we keep a population here, so we can breed them, and then we can increase numbers, and then some of those animals can be released into the wild. But if where we're releasing them isn't safe, there is no point
to conserve in the first place.
So most of the effort is working in areas like Siamese Wildlife Sanctuary and enforcing that people are treating wildlife as they should, and they're not illegally hunting, and so that land management is the hardest part, but it's the most crucial part. Yeah. So what we do with the crocodiles here is a very small part of the whole story.
Yes, sir. But at the same time, you said conservation does not make much sense if we cannot release it back in the wild. So is that one factor to, let's say in general, evaluate if a conservation effort is successful or not successful?
Yes, I mean, we'll never give up, right? So even if we only have 2 animals left of one species in captivity, we're still going to keep them and try and breed those animals to get more.
So we try our best
never give up. But yes, for sure, we get a lot better success at conserving something if we recognize that it needs conserving before there's 2 animals left, say, right? If there's 1,000 animals in the wild, there's still not many. They're still critically endangered, probably.
Just try to do as much as we can.
But we have 1,000 to work with. So numbers are really important. So we should be, so when we know something is becoming endangered or increasingly more endangered, we should now be putting things into place much faster than we did in the past when we wasn't aware. But it's very difficult because there's many factors at play. Yeah.
Yes, sir, because conservation takes effort, time, money. So sometimes it's a very complex thing. But at the same time, sir, like, how do you know that an animal no longer needs a conservation? Like, do you need the term from the animal evaluation organization to tell them?
Yes. So it's important that whatever we do now is backed with scientific evaluation. So it's not like I decide that now they're okay, or
So it's like a common thing to decide.
It's scientifically evaluated by people that's their job, their research passion is that species. So, I mean, if we have, let's say we successfully put thousands of Siamese crocodiles back across the world, and then they're assessed again by IUCN, and maybe they come off the critical. Maybe they go to just endangered.
So we can lessen the effort.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But it's a big effort to do that. Yeah.
So normally each animal classification, effort, conservation are all different. We cannot say one term for all.
No, it takes everything because there's many different things which makes the species vulnerable. From habitat destruction, or there's very specific things. So it's always different. Yeah, and there's never one thing. It's mostly a number of contributing factors, and we need to know what they are and exactly how we can reverse them. And it's very complex.
Yes, Mr. Mark Dainty. But the last question is that it is commonly agreed on, like the destruction of natural habitat. Are bigger from year to year, in general. So do you think that the conservation effort will just go up bigger and bigger? And is it a good thing to have more conservation when the natural,
Of course. So the term conservation is such a broad term, which encompasses kind of everything involved in conservation. So, I mean, it isn't just about working with animals such as this. There's many organisations which work on, again, land management, protecting forests, and this sort of thing. So, like, as if you're if you're conserving natural environments and trying to put pressure on that we can't just destroy them all for our own greed, then we have something left to protect, right? And we have somewhere for the animals to go and live. We can protect more species if you do that. So it's all about kind of sharing the world that we have. We've destroyed a lot already, right? But now we get it. We know now.
We limit what we do.
Whilst we still have something left, we should now start to try and protect it.